All right, I have 12:01 on my clock, and I want to first thank everybody for joining up. It's afternoon here in New York City. I'm sure people are joining from many different time zones with different amounts of sunlight out their windows, but we really appreciate you taking time of your day to join us and join the larger conversation around AgMIP, and in particular, this session is around AgMIP Advances. We have two parts to the AgMIP Advances discussion. This first part is focused on modeling, and then later this week we're going to focus on kind of the regional aspects of systems and applications. So the plan for today is to have 2.5 hours focusing on this topic. We'll do a very brief introduction now and then go into breakouts and then come back at 2 p.m. Eastern time for a plenary discussion so we can all catch each other up on what was discussed. I want to also thank, in particular, In Silico Plants. In Silico Plants is an open source peer-reviewed journal that's online and does all things related to plant modeling, and they were kind enough to help sponsor this section. All right, so I'm going to give a very brief introduction along with Sonali McDermott, who is joining us from New York University. We're going to talk about the AgMIP community and its more than 40 research and application activities that are all advancing modeling and applications in one way or another. We are, of course, in front of the microphone here, but the results and the information you're going to see comes from AgMIP leaders all around the world. We have an AgMIP Leaders Forum that allows the leaders of each of these research activities to play a role in how AgMIP is shaping and developing for the future. All right, so Cynthia already showed a slide like this in the morning's plenary session where we had a focus on food shocks and food systems. But this is just to remind everybody that AgMIP is the people. Here is a slightly different set of pictures than Cynthia showed, only in the sense that we also now include some regional teams like Sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia. These are regional workshops, Latin America. But also that we have kind of research activity teams like our wheat team or our rice team and our maize team. You can see that the constraint on this is that I ran out of space on the slide. There are many activities, and we're really grateful for all the contributions and participation, and especially the work of all the AgMIP leaders to make those activities really run. Let's maybe take a step back and think about kind of what AgMIP is setting out to do. Some people who hear of AgMIP think that this is what we are, that we are just crop and livestock models. And you might argue that the community prior to AgMIP was very much centered around how can we develop crop and livestock models. But one of the first things AgMIP tried to do was say, okay, we need to connect to agricultural economic models. And actually, when you look at that whole connection, it turns into a combined set of models that really capture the physical, biophysical, and socioeconomic conditions of agricultural systems and their context within policy and social systems. So once we have these agricultural models that can communicate and can talk to each other and can connect, the next challenge is to recognize that there's more than one, and we have to understand how the collective understanding of our community is improving on what any single individual modeling group can do. So throughout AgMIP, you're going to see us stack models and look at kind of ensemble understanding and collective understanding beyond just what one model can do. Of course, once we have these agricultural models, the first thing we do is a baseline intercomparison to systematically assess how well our models do when given true climate and policy conditions. What does that tell us about how well our models evaluate against data and how they compare against each other? And of course, by iterating on this process, we can improve our calibration and improve our models. Once we have that kind of firm basis of our models, we can look at future assessments. And here, future can mean different things to different people. It could be an intervention or an investment that you might be planning for tomorrow, or it could be some end of century alternative agricultural system with a different climate and policy landscape. You'll notice here also, of course, there are many different futures that we might want to consider, but by passing them through the same agricultural modeling system, we get interesting information about the future agricultural production, trade, and food security. And through that iterative process, we can ask questions about adaptation, mitigation, and how agriculture connects to other sectors and similar extensions. That simple frame of setting up models to look at both in historical and alternative futures has led to a huge number of specific activities. There's probably too much information on this slide to try to summarize it all. So I might, especially those who have seen this before, I might call your attention to the lower lines of each of these petals, because you'll see some new activities that have been added in many regions since the last AgMIP Global Workshop. A couple of these include a much more intense effort to develop crop model emulators, new information about ozone and air pollution, development of the AgMIP Impacts Explorer. We have new regions that haven't yet made the diagram, but Morocco and Vietnam and other places we are now developing teams with implications for North Africa and Southeast Asia as larger groups. We have great new work on low input systems and the process, kind of mechanical and statistical approach to calibration, and new work on soybean and barley, and the way that we can build forecast and disaster risk information systems, and then also how we can look at co-benefits of adaptation and mitigation. All of these things you'll hear more about during the workshop, and it's really exciting to see how all these activities go. You'll notice in today's program we did not have the ability to highlight features and new results from every one of these activities. So please consider this just a sample, just an introduction to the types of things that AgMIP is doing. And I'd encourage you to check out agmip.org to learn more about each of these activities. But when you put it all together, AgMIP is systematically comparing and improving models so that we can have better assessments of current and future risks to food security, so that we can all work together with stakeholders to build a more productive, sustainable, and resilient future. Over to Sonali, please, to continue.
Thanks, Alex. Right, so in addition to our many activities, we're also working in many places. So this map is slightly dated, but what you're looking at here is a map of all the regional and site-based work that AgMIP has undertaken over the years. And this is comprised of various projects, from the regional integrated assessments. The legend is a little bit small, but you can see RIA. In fact, you can't see my pointer, but our regional integrated assessments are listed here, alongside our crop-specific pilots and other activities that we've been conducting. Despite the coverage that we have across these major agricultural zones, there are still a lot of white spaces and important gaps on this map that we'd like to fill and complete by adding additional regions and key farming systems. And I think there are many of you on the call who are engaged with us on figuring out how best to do that. Next slide, please, Alex. And so beyond these sort of seemingly discrete locations, AgMIP modeling activities are also integrative, linking the biophysical and socioeconomic drivers, which you can see on the left-hand side here, and we're also multi-scale, connecting what's happening at our sites and our regions on the left with the global picture, global climate, crop, and socioeconomic context. And through these linkages, we hope to better explore the impacts and influences of different scenarios of climate, of development, of diet and nutrition, and understand better how these propagate from the local to the global level and vice versa. Next slide, please, Alex. Okay, and so this graphic displays an overview of some of these coordinated global to regional assessments, or the CGRA topics. So in this vein of multi-scale and sort of cross-disciplinary as well. And through this framework, we aim to address some key and urgent policy questions that you see outlined on the outer edge, the outer circle here. And so these include adaptation, mitigation, intersections, for example, with the Paris Agreement, food security, and food policy. And we like to evaluate these things in the context of the inner circle, looking at extremes, at current and future climate changes more generally, at sustainable development trajectories, and so on. Now, doing this requires that we build upon our current set of protocols and devise new rigorous analysis protocols, which are outlined in that orange band around the center circle, to address these cross-scale interactions, assess uncertainty, which is a huge and important component of what we do, given that we're multi-model, and develop metrics to evaluate risk and resilience. Next slide, please, Alex. And so as an example, here's a schematic from our AgMIP regional integrated assessment processes as drawn and provided by our Zimbabwe team. There's of course a lot of details to go through here, in terms of how does this process, this cross-disciplinary integrative multi-model process work. But the overall idea is that we'd like to capture sort of an iterative engagement process in which we provide information to key stakeholders. And so I can't point on this, but we kind of start on that blue side of things. Thank you, Alex. We start on sort of that blue half circle, evaluating risks from climate change and engaging stakeholders to show what these risks look like. From there, we move into the orange and the green half circles, where we envision and consider what might future development pathways look like. Agricultural development pathways, socioeconomic development pathways. And in light of that, also in the green circle, what adaptations might we try to employ, or what adaptations might be feasible in these contexts? And from there, we can then repeat this process that Alex kind of addressed in an earlier slide, and eventually evaluate the impact of these interventions and adaptations. And so this process, this iterative process, along with the help of easy to navigate results and visualizations that we have available through our AgMIP Impact Explorer tool, which is highlighted on the left of this slide. These tools better enable our regional teams and our local policy and decision-making partners to drive positive changes in outcomes and transform regional agricultural systems. Next slide, Alex. Okay, so that was a bit of a whirlwind AgMIP overview. As you can see, we're involved in a lot, we're doing a lot, we're in a lot of places, and we'd like to work with you to figure out both how to bring that together and expand into new areas of inquiry. And so I think we should move now to sort of the main reason why we've gathered here, the breakouts. And so you can see the orange highlight here. Please follow the program links to the breakouts, which I believe that you've, were given in the program, the most latest version. So please check those. And I believe most of you know where you're going. We ask that you please do keep to time. We'd like to have you back here by 2 p.m. As you can see at the bottom for our report backs. We also ask that for those of you that are leading these sessions, so John Ansel for Advances in the Global to Regional Modeling, Senthil Vessing from the Advances in Crop System Modeling, and Lisa Emberson, who's looking at the environmental stresses modeling. We ask that each of you assign a rapporteur, if not yourself, and have that ready by the time we come back, so that way we can directly start engaging in discussions on this. And I think that's all I wanted to say on this. Alex or Eric, were there any other logistical details that we needed to go over?
Just to say that links are also in the chat. So you can also click there, or just if you have your program with you, you can do that. And then yes, as Sonali said, at 2, just click back into the same link that you just used to join right now. You can use that to get back here at 2. Or, depending on your time zone, but yeah, 6 p.m. Universal Time Zone.
All right, thank you all. So I'm going to leave this slide up here, but now would be a good time to log off of this meeting and to join those regional breakout sessions. Again, you can follow the links in the agenda and look here. And if anybody is stuck, please be in touch with the organizers either here in the chat box or by email. Thank you all. See you soon. Have a great discussion.
Thank you.